Welcome back. You're watching NewsEye. Now, 12 years ago, Tony Blair had arrived on the British political scene, heralding the start of New Labour. But now it appears that journey is almost over, with incumbent Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown being battered by a succession of political crises. The latest disaster for Brown was a result of Sunday's European parliamentary elections, with Labour suffering their worst results in decades. The electoral losses come in the wake of a highly damaging MP's expenses scandal, which had implicated a large number of high-ranking government officials and led to a reshuffling of the cabinet. But now Brown is facing increasingly hostile calls from both the opposition and his own party to step down and hold fresh elections. A defiant Brown has vowed to continue, but the implosion of Labour is already leading to major shifts in British politics. A large number of working-class Labour voters have shifted their allegiance to the far-right British National Party, who managed to secure their first-ever seats in the European Parliament. Now, for more on Brown's imminent collapse as well as the European elections, we go over to Saima Mohsen, as committed as ever to NewsEye. So, Saima, the European elections have added to Gordon Brown's worries.
Yes, exactly, Nadia. After weeks of reading from that expenses scandal you just mentioned, that refuses to go away, by the way. Gordon Brown is now heading a party which has suffered its worst election result in 100 years, and despite being in government, has come third behind the Conservatives and the UK Independence Party in the European elections. It's a damning blow and only serves to put yet more pressure on Gordon Brown. Take a listen to this. Headlines like "Out for the count" and "Brown on the brink" do not help at all. And to make matters even worse, an 8th minister has resigned today, which makes the headline "Cabinet in Crisis" sound like an understatement. Right.
So, Saima, what's the mood like on 10 Downing Street?
Nadia, there is no doubt this is a Prime Minister under siege. Gordon Brown has not had an easy time of it. He's been trying to put a brave face on it, spending the weekend at D-Day commemorations in France. But it was back to work today, and in the line of fire yet again. Downing Street is under siege. Harriet Harman, she's a deputy Labour leader and one of the few Brownites still standing by him. She came onto the media here today and try and explain the thrashing in the European elections as a backlash for that expenses scandal. She says that the European elections, the way people voted, was because people were angry about the expense scandal. But it wasn't just Labour MPs that were exploiting their expenses, so that doesn't really serve to explain any of that, and hasn't stopped questions of not if, but when Gordon Brown will go. He says he won't, as you say, he's defiant, and it wouldn't be appropriate to step down at this stage when the country's facing an economic crisis, but it's the political crisis everyone here is more concerned about. Tonight, he faces a meeting with his MPs at Westminster, which could decide if he stays or if he goes.
And also, Saima, we see that the BNP has even got some seats in Europe.
Yes, another major story coming out of the European elections results yesterday is the British National Party gaining its first ever seats in Europe. Not one, but 2 seats. Nick Griffin was almost unable to get into the Manchester Town Hall last night for the results announcement. Crowds of anti-BNP protesters blocked his way and his car from getting in. Some people even pelted his car with eggs, holding signs like "We are anti-racism, anti-fascist party." Yet he did end up getting in and having to be escorted in by the police through the back entrance. When the results were announced, picture this, each MEP, member of European Parliament, said a few words, and all of them said how unpalatable they found it that they'd been elected alongside the BNP. When it was Nick Griffin's turn to speak, each MEP turned their backs and walked off stage in a show of solidarity and protest against the BNP leader. Nevertheless, the BNP has 2 seats in the European election, which it can now use as a springboard for greater say and more popularity, some people fear, perhaps in the future.
Certainly, images not easy to forget. Saima, thank you so for these updates. Now, in news from around the world, voters in Lebanon have shunned the Iranian-backed alliance headed by Hezbollah, thrusting the governing pro-Western coalition parties back into power. The March 14 alliance, led by former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri's son, Saad Hariri, has won 71 seats out of 128 seats. According to official sources, voter turnout was over 50%, an unprecedented high for Lebanon. Analysts fear Lebanon could sink back to political instability unless rival factions are able to cobble together a coalition. Hezbollah's main Christian ally, the Free Patriotic Movement, has promised to work with winning parties to try and form a coalition. Many in Lebanon believe a unity government is the only way forward. Rescuers have salvaged 15 more bodies from the Atlantic Ocean after an Air France jet mysteriously crashed last week. Flight AF 447 was carrying 228 passengers when it disappeared, but so far only 17 bodies have been found. Brazilian and French search teams have also recovered dozens of pieces of debris from the Air France jet. The wreckage was found 1,000 kilometers northeast of Brazil's Fernando de Noronha Islands. As protests in Indian-administered Kashmir enter their 8th day, the police have released a forensic report confirming the rape of 2 Muslim women. Earlier, a government inquiry claimed the 2 women had simply drowned. The women's families are now demanding the culprits, who they believe are Indian troops, be brought to book. A curfew has been imposed in Srinagar following a call from Syed Ali Shah Gilani for a people's march. The police have also detained more separatist leaders, including Gilani. And that's all the time that we have for you tonight on NewsEye. Do write in to us. Our email address is newseye@dawnnews.tv. We look forward to hearing from you. I'm Nadia Zafar.